Hi everyone, I am here with a story from Where Miracles Happen, True Stories of Heavenly Encounters. This one is called Protector in the Barn. Sounds really interesting, doesn't it? And by Shakespeare, Richard II, he says, "If angels fight, weak men must fall, for heaven still guards the right." Okay, so now let's read Protector in the Barn. Ever since 5th grade, Katie Lowell and Michelle Sanders have ridden horses together in the Royal East Coast area where they both lived. Both the time Katie turned 13 in 1980, she was the proud owner of Blaze, a beautiful chestnut with white markings on his face. Since Michelle lived on a huge farm with lots of barns and pastures, Katie boarded Blaze there. Every morning before school, my dad dropped me at the barn door on his way to work, Katie explains. I fed Blaze and turned him out on one of the pastures. Then Michelle and I walked down a long driveway to meet the school bus. After school, the girls retraced their steps, walking from the bus stop back to the farm. Sometimes I wouldn't see Blaze because of the rolling hills, Katie said. But I'd call him, and he'd gallop in, full speed. The girls would brush their horses and saddle up so they could ride a bit before dark. Eventually, Katie's father would arrive too to take his daughter home. It was a perfect arrangement. Usually, Michelle went home before Katie's father arrived. Since the other horse boarders weren't around at the time, Katie was alone, but I loved it, she said. The farm was a peaceful place, and I was never afraid. One pleasant afternoon in late October, Katie and Michelle jumped off the school bus and ran up the driveway to the pasture, where the horses waited. The girls rode for a while, and eventually the shadows lengthened. "Have to help with dinner," Michelle said, slipping off her horse and turning him out to the pasture. Katie opened her mouth to say goodbye to her friend, then stopped. She felt odd. In fact, for no apparent reason, she was suddenly afraid. "Do you have to go?" she asked. Michelle shot her a puzzled look. "Well, sure. I never get to stay out as late as you know that." "Can't you ride just a little longer?" Katie heard herself plead, her strange apprehension growing by the minute. Michelle looked even more perplexed. "Of course not. And anyway, it's getting dark, and your dad will be here soon. See you tomorrow." With a wave, she headed toward her house. Katie didn't wave back. By now, she was extremely frightened, yet everything seemed normal. Why this strange agitation? She would finish her barn chores quickly and wait outside for her father. She decided. Usually it was hard to leave the farm, but tonight she longed to see his car. Katie led Blaze into his stall and hurriedly brushed him down. Being inside the barn made her even more nervous, as if she were being watched, yet no one was there. Finally she finished, but just before leaving she realized that the horses were short of hay. She'd need to go up into the loft and throw some down. The barn's top 3 floors were used to store hay, Katie says. The floor above the stalls was divided into 4 corners, one for each horse, so we boarders would know how much hay we were using and when we needed to buy more. Katie climbed the hayloft ladder under her corner, which each step her feeling of dread increased. Something was terribly wrong. She knew it. Without knowing how she knew it, instinct told her to run, that she was in danger, that something terrible was going to happen. But it was unthinkable that her beloved Blaze should be left without hay. At the top of the ladder, she put her hand on the door and started to push. "Katie," a voice said over her left shoulder. "Katie, close the door. Don't go up there. Go out, sit quietly, and wait for your father." The voice was not loud, nor did it sound male or female. It was calm, Firm, precise, and not at all frightening, but it commanded. Startled, Katie turned in the direction of the voice, but no one was behind her. There was no one at all in the barn. She didn't hesitate. Quickly climbing down the ladder, Katie scooted out and waited in the usual place for her father. As soon as he came, she jumped into the car. I didn't feel safe, she said, until the barn was completely out of sight. The next morning before school, Katie's father drove her to the farm. But as they reached a barn, they saw police cars surrounding it. Katie's father got out of the car. "What's going on?" he asked an officer. Katie followed him, worried. Was Blaze all right? What had happened? "Everything's okay now," the police officer reassured them. "But yesterday a violent inmate escaped from a mental hospital and wounded up here." Here? Katie's heart started to pound. Yeah, the policeman pointed to the side of the barn near Blaze's stall. He was hiding up in the loft on a bed of hay he'd made in this corner. Her corner, where her hay lay, was kept, where he had almost opened the loft door. The officer shook his head. He had a 3-pronged pitchfork laying beside him in case someone got in his way. Lucky no one did until we caught him just now. So see, God kept her out of there, or he would have killed that little girl. Lucky. Katie remembered the unnamed terror that had surrounded her, the loving voice that had sent her out of the barn to safety, and would always know, that it was far more than that. She knew God protected her and kept her safe. She knew something was wrong. That voice, God, telling her something was wrong and telling her not to go up there. God protecting her. So I hope you guys enjoyed that story, Protector in the Barn, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Good night, guys.